Okay, welcome everybody to another video of Jerry and me. Uh, for those of you who don't know us, we will do a short introduction. My name is Willem Zeiler. I'm a ServiceNow MVP and also since recently a certified master architect certified by ServiceNow. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the Xanadu release, not the new functionalities, but we will share our tips and tricks, how Jerry as a platform or product owner and me as a platform architect see the Xanadu release. So Jerry, can you introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, William. So my name is Jerry Wong. As William mentioned, I'm a platform or product owner looking after ServiceNow. So I'm also a Rising Star. So again, be very excited to talk about some of my experiences, how I've done upgrades in the past, but also looking how we can obviously look to upgrade to Xanadu.
Yeah, and Jerry, may be important to tell a bit about our experiences as well, right? Um, I've been working, I saw almost 10 years with ServiceNow, 12 years in IT, and I think almost all of those years as a consultant. So I work for a ServiceNow partner, and you, of course, work for a customer. So that's a bit of a
It,
different
it
viewing
is.
angle, maybe. So it might be interesting to see the different way of approaching this. And can you tell a bit about your experience?
Yeah, so I've always worked in higher education. I've been working in higher education for over 18 years. I've been using ServiceNow since 2018. So again, as William said, I've been a customer of ServiceNow, and I have managed and ran upgrades for our organizations before.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so it's not our first rodeo when it comes to upgrading. Um, where does the upgrade journey start for you, Jerry?
So the upgrade journey for me is, I think, looking at the release notes, because we need to have a plan on how we upgrade. So the way that I've been taught around upgrade, so this is again, I've taken guidance from our implementation partner. So initially, when we had ServiceNow implemented by our implementation partner, one of our, I suppose, handovers or knowledge transfers is how do we effectively manage upgrades going forward? Because once an implementation partner, as you've got experience in that space, is you probably support a lot of customer implementations, but once the customer gets hold of ServiceNow and you're no longer on the implementation journey, is the customer then has to maintain that. So it's something that we've been taught around, looking at the release notes that ServiceNow provides, but also looking at the upgrade documentation or upgrade courses that ServiceNow provides in terms of guidance on how effectively how to plan an upgrade. Also getting in the people or the stakeholders that are involved in using ServiceNow around their different processes, because give an example, if a module or a process within ServiceNow was deprecated, or a new feature that was released that would have impacted on their current process, then they would need to be informed and made aware. And again, understanding what that impact is going to have on their current process, because they may have been using that particular process for a number of years, and now a new release comes out for ServiceNow, is that's going to impact, or that's something's been deprecated, is something that we need to have a conversation about, and then also to make sure that the users that are using ServiceNow and the process is trained. So again, organizational change management comes into play here as well, and making sure people are communicated and they are also being trained and also adopting the new way of working as well.
Yeah, I think breaking a bit down what you said multiple things. I think for me as a partner, I see that difference in, as you said, the customer and partner journey. I think depending on the agreement, it might be, sometimes it's called managed services or continued partnerships, that also during the longevity of the ServiceNow journey a partner can support. So sometimes it's a project delivery and done, and sometimes that's a prolonged engagement where the partner will also help during upgrades. But indeed, I don't think it changes the journey that you described much, because as you said, you've been talking about involving the stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
Organizational change management, I think ServiceNow is doing a great job sharing knowledge, making people around that find that knowledge enthusiastic about new releases. We are very excited about Xanadu. That's also why we are here talking about upgrading. But your stakeholders, for the different companies I've worked for, you see they are on different levels of excitement, I would say. And organizational change management, indeed, a big part of it is training that they and communicating so that they know what is changing, that we enable them to be ready for that change. If there's a new module that can help them, if their way of working changes, that they are equipped with the right knowledge to understand it and to do it, that they know it's coming, and of course to excite them. And where in projects we are really used to also the celebration part of OCM, organizational change management, but also organizational celebration management, I think. It's also good to make the upgrade a bit of a party, right? To also focus on there's new cool stuff coming that can really add business value. So I like all those aspects that you mentioned, Jerry, and I couldn't agree more on the importance of also organizational change management in this. And what I would like to add is ServiceNow also has the early availability program, right? That you get a bit of early access. Of course, as a ServiceNow enthusiast, it's always nice to have early access to the new stuff. But at least think about when your organization is ready to have that access. And by accessing, I would say on a non-production environment. And then when you want to upgrade eventually your production environment. Because I think what we see at our customers, there can be a big difference when you say, I want access on a non-production, investigate new functionalities, find maybe a few hidden gems, and then at some point you want to upgrade production. And there you also see different strategies, right? One really common strategy is that you hear a lot is to say, wait until patch 1 is out, because then they find a lot of bugs. And are able to fix that. It's a more stable version. Some customers even wait for patch 2 or 3. But having it on a non-production environment also helps finding the issues that are popping up in your customer environment, because it might not happen to everyone. And you can help ServiceNow by pointing out the things that are happening for you. If it's a customization that interferes with the new version, you can already start fixing it. So having a bit of time and start experimenting on that new version early in the road, I think that really adds a lot of benefit as well.
Yep, you're absolutely right, William. And I've had some experiences where, we having to plan the upgrades, maybe 2 or 3 months early in advance to start to engage, like I said, with the business to get people prepared, because this is not a simple, kind of upgrade or patching change that we do on ServiceNow, because as you mentioned, it could be that you've got ServiceNow that you might configure that's just literally out of the box. It's greenfield and not much customizations. Whereas, there are other examples where organizations may have had ServiceNow for quite a long time, and during that time, there is a lot of customizations or integrations that's been done that will need that intensive testing, because it's wonderful as well that ServiceNow has automated testing frameworks on there as well, which then you can automate that testing. So again, is understanding how can we start to leverage some of that automation to say, okay, some of these manual testings, we can try and automate those. But again, we need to invest the time and effort to build also those ATS. I know there are out of the box ones that you can utilize, but again, my experience sometimes with customers, we like to add in additional fields, or maybe add in additional business rules and UI rules as well. So again, it's just understanding the commitment and the investment that you do have for automated testing, but as well, you can take advantage of the upgrade center that you do have in ServiceNow. So you can run in terms of a check on the new release or the new patch to say, right, what potential issues am I going to see? So you could have a look at the skipped records in advance, say how many skip records am I going to get. So I think in my experience, I've probably dealt with about 100, 200 skip records, and they are prioritized in, from P1 down to P5 in terms of what are those critical ones that you need to be aware of. And I've in terms of using those skip records, and you can actually compare what's out of the box, what you've done to either customize or configure, and really kind of make a decision to whether to kind of move back to out of the box configuration, or you keep your configuration that you've done for your instance as well.
And
so yeah, very much
key, right? That the new release is also, I would say, for many of our customers, a good point in time, I would say, to have that conversation. As you said, you are involving your stakeholders, so also have the conversation, where can we move back to box? Because sometimes there's new functionality that isn't new for you because you have already built it, right? If you've been using ServiceNow for 10 years, ServiceNow 10 years ago or now, a lot of the things that customer needed back then are now out of the box, so already available. And then it makes sense to say, hey, we're using the same things, but we've built it ourselves. It's maybe slightly different. The field names are maybe different, but it's almost the same process, and it works for a lot of customers. Can we migrate our custom built version of that to that out of the box? Because it has those benefits of the enhanced support of ServiceNow. You can connect with other customers that follow that same process, so you're adhering more to a standard process in ServiceNow. And I think doing that in a point of time during an upgrade, it's a nice, how do you say it? I only know the Dutch saying of it, but it forces you to evaluate those things, right? And that's sometimes difficult to do throughout the year, to clean up your technical debt as well. So I can tell a bit about the customer that we are currently doing that. As you mentioned already, powerful tool is the automated test framework. I think also what I see that not all customers even know what they have been manually testing before. Sometimes it's captured in Excel sheets. Sometimes Teams changes and the Excel sheets get lost. So not only think about what you can automate, but also how can we control what we're manually testing. And I think having that overview of the manual test, that's step one. And then automating those tests, that's step two. And the same goes for your technical debt. What we've been using is a version of Instance Scan. We've been talking about that as well, where we build our own scans and we run an elaborate test before upgrading. So also see not only what's different in the new version, but also what technical debt do we currently have in our instance, and is our instance score, what they mentioned, is that increasing?
That's a good shout, actually. The instant scan. I didn't actually think about that one. So that's a really good tip. Is that quite a new William? Is that quite a new feature? The instant scan, has that been around for quite a while?
Yeah, it's difficult to say. Eh? Also, during the Certified Master Architect program, a lot of the things that the architects from Platformation, have been doing quite for some time are
Mhm.
fairly new to others. For Platformation, we've been using InstaScan since I joined them 2.5 years ago. We have an elaborate suite that we built on top of it that our customers can use to, and we also use, for example, to scan update sets before they move from one instance to the next. But I also think that it's not that well-known feature yet. And my advice would be, and that's also why we advise it to all the customers, start using it. Of course, you have the ServiceNow Health Scan that you can request from ServiceNow. That's also scans built on top of InstaScan. But I think a lot of partners and also customers can come up with a lot of really specific scans that add value to them. That from then on you can automatically run. So the same for automated test framework. And you mentioned it will take you some time to set it up, but then it's a gift that keeps on giving, right? Every upgrade you can scan, automatically do that regression test with ATF, automatically scan technical depth with the instant scan, which also makes it easier to say, hey, instead of skipping one upgrade, because sometimes you see customers do that, they say upgrading takes a lot of time, so we will skip one and then upgrade on the next. Also, to stick with the supported versions, right? At some point, you have to upgrade because the version runs out of support. But automating a lot of this, speeding up the upgrades, I think that is key. And I know that some of our MVPs, like Ashutosh, Dhruv, and Mark, have some content on upgrading in a week. Or I think Ashutosh in his last call said, in all honesty, 2 weeks. I think also because what you said, involving the stakeholders, if you include that, as opposed to what we've sometimes also see is companies taking 1 month, 2 months, or sometimes even longer, three months to do an upgrade. Yeah, you can imagine going from 2 or 3 months to a few weeks. That's a huge cost saver, and it allows you way better to focus more on the organizational change management part instead of the technical part of that change.
I think we're in one of the downsides. I would say if you know, if you have an organization spending 2 to 3 months or maybe longer doing an upgrade, because my understanding as well, if you've got a development instance, test instance, obviously production, logically the way I've been taught is you upgrade the development. Once you've done all the testing and the fixes, you move the update sets across to the test. So if you imagine that you've got production on a different version and your development and test is also on a newer version, and I think you have to put a development freeze on at that time, and you have to you will have to talk to the business to say, we're doing an upgrade, and they have to buy into that the fact that we will have to do a development freeze during an upgrade period because
Yeah.
we need to be able to protect our live configuration, because our development and tests are on a newer version. Because if you start to develop some of that capability, that is what we mentioned, it could be deprecated, it could be just be new features that's been made available in the newer instance version, and then you move those update sets across from your development test into a production that's on a previous version, then you're going to find things will be broken and it won't be working. So for me, it's not a good practice way of doing development through a testing and upgrade period.
Yeah, and I think that's something to think about, and also there, I think the power of ServiceNow is also the difficulty. Sometimes we have customers that have 12 different instances, or I think the biggest that we've seen is over 20 instances, like a huge number. Um, But it starts with having a development and production, right? You can call up ServiceNow, say I want the license, and you get a development instance and production. And especially there, the impact is way bigger, right? There you really have to freeze. Whereas if you have, I would say, 5 or 6, then you can still, of course, have one environment still on the current version, or the previous version, and then upgrade everything, continue development, maybe not on your development instance, but sandbox or test. So the impact of the upgrade of the change, you don't have to freeze per se. Whereas if you have 2 or 3 environments, yeah, then definitely agree with the change freeze. But also, it depends on the risk appetite and the changes that you want. So sometimes that you say, hey, if we really, as you said, know the release notes, know what's deprecated, what are new functions that we are not using, you can still do some development, let's say on Xanadu, and it still should work on Washington. But the risk is, especially if you don't have instances where you can validate it that are production-like, and it's always a huge risk. So it really depends on the context and risk appetite. But in general, I would say change freeze is indeed what we see very common. And maybe specifically to you as a platform owner, are there other things that you do maybe in the upgrade process or around that upgrade process that you think could benefit other platform owners as well?
I suppose, again, depending on the changes that you perform in ServiceNow. So if you have users logging into ServiceNow using a single sign-on capability or method, are you going to allow them to log in at the time when you do an upgrade on your production instance? Because there are times where if there are changes to your live environment, maybe on the employee center or in your service portal, you may want to think about having a maintenance period to really kind of communicate out to your customers, to inform them that during this time there is going to be an upgrade and you will not be able to access this instance. And again, just to think about what those alternatives of support to your service desk or another route that they can get support whilst ServiceNow is being upgraded. So that's just some tips, hints and tips that I've experienced in the past.
Yeah, makes sense. And indeed, the thinking about the I would say sort of downtime, planning it, of course, if you have, it also depends on the context. If you can plan it outside of office hours, you can upgrade outside of office hours, especially production. But some international companies that have global operating business, yeah, there is no outside of office hours, right? Then think about how can you minimize the impact. Is that maybe finding the right hour where the least amount of users are using it, and the least impactful services? I think that's also key to find that right spot. And I think you have to invest one time calculating the business schedules, finding that sweet spot. Also make sure that there's other changes in your organization, probably fighting for that time slot as well. So have that change management process clear. Treat this also as a change management, that you have the change requested, that everybody is aware. And also align it with ServiceNow is the platform of platforms. We have a lot of integrations. So make sure that when we test and validate and upgrade, that we also align that with the changes and testing on those connected tools as well. For example, an HR project, ServiceNow is the system of interaction, right? We interact with it, but you have those system of records that are connected. Make sure the integrations still work. Make sure that you use those time slots also to say, hey, can we patch or upgrade? and do valid testing also on the integration, not just on the ServiceNow things. See if a form is there now, end to end, does it still work? And preferably, as you said, in an automated way.
I mean, I'd like to add, William, on that is if you've got mid-service as well. I've in the past where I've had to work with the Microsoft the administrator team just to make sure that the mid-servers are again upgraded. Are they connected as well? So again, making sure you have support alongside your ServiceNow upgrade, just in case that it doesn't come back, because then they can support you on making sure, right, do we need to restart the mid server, or do we need to make sure that if you've got any service graph connectors connecting up to your Intune or your Jamf connectors, just to make sure they are all working. So again, good tip is probably have a checklist of things that you want to be able to check when you do your upgrades, because one of the things you want to make sure, I've done checks where making sure that your single sign-on is working, making sure your inbound emails are working. So send an email into your ServiceNow instance to make sure that is a ticket being generated from the email as well. So again, I would give a massive tip of having a checklist, and you just check things off. And again, do that within your test environment as well. So you at least you can simulate what that would look like in the production upgrade.
Yeah, that's a perfect tip, and we tend to do that also for development work. We have a run book for the deployment of a project or program. Think about it in the same way. So have a list of people that are on standby if you need them. And when it comes to the checklist, Jerry, I think as a platform owner, it sometimes feel within your organization that you're probably the person that needs to figure that out. But you're part of the ServiceNow ecosystem, right? So I think also there, the ServiceNow user groups that take place globally, if there's a ServiceNow user group near you, also go there. Exchange the runbook best practices, as you said, the checklist. What are you checking for? And of course, there's slight variance in that. Not everybody uses the same integrations. Not everybody has the same tooling. But overall, there's a lot of checks that you need to do that you can learn. And of course, promoting a bit us as partners as well. That's also what we do, right? What we see working at one customer, we will, of course, tell the next customer. And with every customer that we have in our network, of course, our runbooks improve more and more. And the checks include, of course, the most important and pragmatic things and more elaborate things. But I would say, reach out, look into the community and find those tips and tricks as well. And looking at the time, Jerry, maybe we can start closing it off.
Yeah.
I think you ended at a really good tip. If there's one more advice you could give the people before we leave, what would that be?
I just actually thought of, I think when you mentioned around, using the communities for that additional support, I think also make use of ServiceNow support as well. And that's where, again, if I found issues with the upgrade or there's maybe functionalities that's not working, again, use ServiceNow support. And it will also, if you're a ServiceNow Impact customer, again, use your customer success manager as well to support you on those areas as well. So not just community that you can use, but again, you've got subject matter experts in that space to support you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jerry. That's a great tip. I hope for the people watching, this conversation was useful. I will share the details of Jerry and me below. As we said, it is our own vision as a platform architect and a platform and product owner. And we're happy to share. If there's questions, feel free to reach out and, of course, connect with us on LinkedIn and YouTube. Thank you for watching. And as we say in the YouTube environment, like, subscribe, share.
Thank you, William. Thank you for everyone for watching as well.
Bye.